Are you ready to achieve consistent 10K months in your business, but you aren't sure if it's possible? Especially to do it in a way that is sustainable, and ethical, and aligned with the things you care about and want to be doing in your business? It's a tall order, right? Well, our guest today has the magic sauce, and she is willing to dish it out because she is passionate about supporting other women in business, just like you. We talk about what actually matters, realistic business milestones, overcoming tech overwhelm, and the importance of authentic connections in marketing and sales. So whether you're aiming for your first 50K or scaling beyond that, this episode is packed with actionable insights. And I'm so glad you're here and making time for this and for your business. Let's introduce you to our guest and get you started on your journey towards ethical business success. Welcome to Authenticity Amplified, your resource to attract and connect to your ideal client and grow your business. The ideal podcast for mindset, messaging, and marketing for purpose-driven founders and solopreneurs. I'm your host, Shawna Rodrigues, a fellow entrepreneur and someone excited to learn right alongside you. I'm honored to introduce you today to Jan Ditchfield, award-winning business strategist and podcast host. She is all about ethical sales and marketing strategies and the host of the Top 3%, which is so exciting, No BS Business School. I love how authentic she is. That's how I found her on social media, which says a lot because it's hard to have people find you and just resonate. And she resonates. I'm so glad that I connected with her and that we are able to have her today. She is all about you finally having consistent 10K months with your business. And we are here to talk about those strategies. Thank you for being here today, Jan.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm just thrilled that we get to have this information shared that we all need, and for people to get to know you and what you can help bring to their business too, because finding the resources that really resonate for solopreneurs it's not easy. There's so much out there, and then finding the right resources is hard. So thank you for coming on today.
My pleasure.
So our first question is to kind of get to know you a little bit. So if your dearest friend gifted you a legitimate, not a fake one, a real genie in a bottle, and gave you, we're only going to do 2 wishes. If they gave you 2 wishes, what would those wishes be?
Oh my goodness. That's a really hard question.
You're already, she's like, I'm ready to talk business here. We're ready to talk about
I'm going to think about this one. So I think if I had 2 wishes, my 2 wishes would be, one, that I would have the ability to be able to donate endlessly to the causes I care about without ever running out of money for that. That would be number 1. Number 2 would be, honestly, I wish my daughter would grow up to have a very happy and fulfilled life. That would be my second wish.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes. I love that. How old is your daughter?
She's 6.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
I love it.
You got me all misty thinking about that question. So I'm used to, let's get down to business.
Let's get down to business. But yeah, we got to start with a little balance. We get to get a little more of the philanthropic side of you as well as the mother side of you. I love that we get to have that balance. That is beautiful. And she's an only child, I take it.
She is an only, yes. Yeah. And so am I. So I think it's kind of like it runs in the family a bit. I enjoyed being an only child, and she doesn't, but eventually she'll appreciate it, I hope.
I love that. Yeah, she'll eventually meet people like that help her appreciate that. I have a larger family, and I had 2 friends in graduate school that were only children. And I think that they always wished they had siblings until they met me and heard of my adventures with my siblings. And I think that finally cured them. Being my friend helped them understand, okay, it's not all rainbows and unicorns.
Exactly.
Yes. There are challenges at times. So it's not always, yes, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love that. And it's kind of nice because it kind of goes into your background is in fundraising. So philanthropy and working with these causes has always been something important to you.
Yeah, I had a very long career as a professional fundraiser, and I worked basically as a gun for hire for most of my career. So I'd be brought in to work with charities that were really struggling. And I would be the person that would come in to kind of steady the ship. So I would come in, do a lot of operational redesign, raise a lot of money, rub elbows with all the people that needed introductions. And then I would move on to the next cause from there. But I specialize in human rights. So in Canada, which is where I am. So most of my causes I worked with were very human rights focused, women rights focused, disability rights. And I also founded two of my own national nonprofits, and one ran for close to 10 years, and the other one is still running with a really wonderful CEO. And I'm just founder. That's all I am. But she runs the show, and all the success is her credit as well. So it's pretty near and dear to my heart.
Oh, that is so exciting.
Mhm.
And I love that you've parlayed that into your current work. So tell us how like the sales and marketing connects to like how has fundraising kind of informed what you do now?
It basically is everything I do because I teach ethical systems. And so I really focus on helping women who are purpose driven, or other women as well who have perhaps like colleges, regulatory colleges, have to do things differently, understand how to navigate the online business world without risking your values or your integrity or your credibility or anything that goes with that, using fundraising tactics. So I've just taken everything that I used to do in my career and modified it for this space. And it just works so much better, in my opinion, than what's commonly taught. And so that's really where it is and when you're good at raising money, it's pretty easy to teach people how to do it. So that's my career was all about raising money. $25 million is what I was responsible for. So I'm just teaching you how to do it here too.
That is so beautiful. I love that you
Mhm.
kind of found that way into this space. And it is like your purpose is to help others like fulfill their purpose. So it kind of is a cyclical, beautiful thing to kind of connect all those pieces.
Yeah. For me, it's always been very important to be able to help women understand that the passion and the talents that you have are really important and that you deserve to be paid for them. So finding that way to marry that purpose and the profit together, it's what I've done forever. It's what I did out there in the real world. It's what I do here because the two can live, side by side. And too often I think we're pushed that we have to pick one over the other, and it just doesn't vibe. So I'm all about let's bring it together, and I'll show you how to make both of the things work for you. And so it works for your family and your life as well.
That is wonderful. And it seems that when the online space is tricky because it's so big and broad and has so many opportunities, but trying to find yourself in that space can be a little bit overwhelming. And so this ethical way of doing it is probably a really important piece for us to all learn and to be able to see ourselves in. What do you feel is the thing that most online solopreneurs kind of get lost in and get confused about with that?
I think a lot of it has to do with like the actual selling part of it, and having like, how do I sell, but also how do I package myself in a way that makes me still feel okay about myself. There's a lot of things in the online space where you're taught, well, you can just go Google something that's really popular and then make a course and sell the course and make $1 million. But I think when you're trying to do more with your talents and more with your business, we need better advice than that, because that isn't setting you up to be an expert at something. That's just setting you up to make money. And again, the money's important, 100%. That's what I teach. But the doing good things through the work is even more important to me. So I think that's why we just need to find different ways to market and sell and package our expertise, so there's more alignment with that.
Ooh, I love that. I love that alignment and understanding how we fit. And I think it takes a little bit more time and exploration. And we're like, everything is rushed sometimes. It feels like we're trying to do things to rush it and get it done instead of actually having that reflection and figuring out where I fit in this and what my expertise really is and how it all comes together. Is
Yeah.
that something that you do a lot more? Is it more coaching or do you feel like it's more like just through the course and the work that you do?
I don't really consider myself to be a coach, and I think that's like one of the I get you get gets used a lot because you put business and people go coach and at it right off the bat. But I'm a strategist, is really what I am. So for me, it's more about helping women see the opportunities they have and then creating the plan to execute the opportunity, which is the same as fundraising. It's like, I walked in and someone would say, we need $1 million. And my answer would be, do you care how I get there? And they were like, nope. And I was like, great, write the strategy, execute the strategy. There's the money. So that's the same thing that I do within my current job, my career, my business, I should say. Sometimes it's a job, but really, I think for women, a lot of the time we're fed this idea that we can become instant successes online, and there's not enough conversation about the different milestones that we hit along the way. So, in order for us to get to consistent 10K months, which puts us into a six-figure business, we have to first start out by getting to 50. And what we do to get to the 50 and then go from the 50 to the 100 are also different things from there. And to go from 100 to multiples also changes. So there is this progression that happens in business that no one ever tells us about. So when we feel like we're not getting there fast enough, we often think we're failing when in fact you are doing exactly what you're supposed to do. Just no one's told you it takes a long time sometimes for us.
And that's why I love that your podcast is called the No BS Business School, because I feel like those are the business lessons we all need to learn, is that we don't build a business overnight. And that even when we hear these success stories that sound like the overnight successes, there was years of buildup that allowed folks to get to that place. And so it's important for us to realize that it takes time. And this is really important, this fact that the strategies change based on where you're at. So
Yes.
can you give us an example of a strategy that changes from 0 to 50,000 and from 50,000 to 120,000 a year? Like an example of how a strategy would change.
Yeah. So there's a thing in business, and this is really boring. This is like I teach the most boring things in the world, and I always try to figure out a ways to make them more interesting, but they're not. They're very boring. But in business, there's a thing called an S curve, and an S curve is a natural dip in business that happens. So when we start from zero and we start kind of going up, things work. And at
Yeah.
first, we start with strategy, and then in order to get to growth stage, which is really where we are, kind of in that 0 to 50,000 range, that's growth.
Mhm.
That's tactics. That at that point is mastering tactics, getting down, understanding how to use them, finesse them, get better at them. And then once we master the tactics and we're like, okay, it's smooth sailing, suddenly we hit this lull in the business and there's a dip that happens. And everybody experiences it. You, me, everyone does. It's just part of business. And what happens when we're in the S curve is we double down on tactics because we think, well, it got us this far. So if I just keep doing more, it'll get me out of this. And in fact, what happens is it digs us deeper. And so we go
Ooh.
further down instead of coming out of it, because what we have to do at that stage is actually start professionalizing the business. So that now becomes systems, processes, boring bits. And so all of those fun things that we got to do while we were growing it and we were having all the fun and the excitement and all of these things are working, all of a sudden we're like, what's going on here? And now it's time to
Um,
actually start. And I like to call it, we need to become professional entrepreneurs. And so this is when we learn how to do repeat things and how to run systems and patterns and understand. For me, a lot of it is customer psychology and why people do what they do. And we just get more finesse as we get old, like further down the line and get better at doing it. So that's really like a very concrete example of you want to go from 50 to 100. It's let's double down on systems at this point.
that's very exciting, very interesting to know. And then the other piece I think that I've heard is that you don't need systems until you're at that point. And sometimes we get so dizzy trying to figure out all the systems before we need them that we build like this entire beautiful system and big thing before we know if there's a market fit, before we know if it's needed. And then we don't ever take off because we're so busy building and making this beautiful thing that we never know if it has legs or if it actually matches with the market.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And getting out again, that's why the tactics and I call it, people will say like throw spaghetti at a wall. And I don't believe in that, but I do believe in being very strategic with experimenting. And so
Yeah.
experiment with things, but watch data. That's the thing. If you're going to say put something in there to make sure it's actually working, get familiar with your numbers, because that's also something that women, we tend to stick our head in the sand and we're like, I don't need to look at the numbers, but your numbers will tell you everything about your business. And there's no emotion in those numbers. So for us, it's the one place where you can just kind of dig into and be like, there's no emotion here. It's just straight fact. And if I master this, then I can figure out how to do more of this. So I would spend more time knowing your numbers than worrying about your systems at this point. Yeah.
Yes, we need to come up with a better phrase. Yeah, because I hear people say throwing spaghetti against the wall. I'm like, that's not the right term. But
No.
I hope we're meaning something like what you're saying, that we're like, we're trying things, we're taking risks, we're attempting things, but we're also looking at what's working and figuring out what's going to happen and finding where the alignment is. Because there is that piece of trying to figure out, like, what do I want to be doing? Where does everything fit? Like, what is the right piece? What are people responding to? And trying to figure that out. Because I know even when I started my podcast network, that when I went into having my podcast a few years ago, that I was like, I'm curious. I know I want to have a podcast. I know I want to do this. I'm not sure how I'm going to monetize it. I'm not sure what's going to happen with it. I'm curious what's going to happen with it. And I think that curiosity going into it, seeing what was going to happen and then seeing what stuck. So like the spaghetti is what stuck. And the responsiveness I got was other women saying, oh my gosh, I would love for somebody to manage this for me. And then I was looking around and there was a group of women I was working with that nobody was starting their podcast. I was the only one that started the podcast. And so there was 20 women and yet I was the only one that actually started the podcast. I was like, wow, this is where people get stuck. So this is somewhere where people need help. This is a place where there's a market for this, right? So it was where I found that there was a fit. And so I was looking and learning and figuring out where things went. So there was like, people would say spaghetti against the wall, but I'm like, there's more to it than this. So we need to find a better analogy.
I think you just nailed it. I think actually saying like it's curiosity combined with messy action. That's what it
Yes.
is. If you put the two things together, it's just like take the messy action, but be curious about what you're doing and be curious about how people respond and the data and what works. And like you said, find the things that make you really passionate and then double down on that. And I think then you're like after that, now we can put all the systems in place to scale you. Like it's great now, but it is that curiosity part of it. I think that's so important. And we forget about that when we start businesses is enjoy the curiosity stage.
Yes. And try not to get stuck with this is what I want to do and this is how I'm going to do it. I need to
Yeah.
learn what other people want and how things kind of go together and where it comes out and what people are asking for more of and what they want. And so that market fit, I think, is a piece that can be challenging because we kind of get attached to what we think is going to work. And sometimes we don't know enough to know what's going to work. And especially when industries are new and changing. And I think with AI and different things are constantly changing. And I think that's one of the blessings of working in podcasting specifically is like just yesterday, one of the vendors I work with completely changed their model, which changes how I work with a different vendor because everything's constantly changing. So I can't get too attached to how things are working and what my systems are for my business because it is shifting constantly. And I think with AI and different pieces, we're all experiencing that with our businesses. But that curiosity and flexibility is an important part of being an entrepreneur and doing this.
No, 100%. I think you nailed it with that. And nothing will ever stay static in business. And that's when you think, and I say this all the time to the women I work with, what your business looks like right now, it will not look like that in a year. And a year from now, it'll look completely different in a year from now. So if you're not willing to ride that and just allow it to go, we steer the ship. Like you don't let it just run wild. You have to, but it's not going to stay the same. And so learning to adapt and learning to be flexible within it is what part of the success comes from that as well.
Yes, I had really good advice from someone who was telling me to try to vision 5 years ahead in my industry, which is challenging to do in my industry, but you can't look too right in front of you when you're running business. You have to be able to like have that ability to kind of look further out, which is challenging to do because everything is constantly changing, right? But I think that that's an important part of trying to figure out the bigger picture and where things might be going. And so you have a North Star and direction for things.
Yeah, 100%. He definitely. The part about looking out too is sometimes when we start businesses, we don't know where we want to end up. And I've always also mentioned that is think about what your exit strategy should look like too, because not all of us are going to stay in a business forever. And maybe you want to sell it, or maybe you want to retire out of it, or maybe you want to run it or let someone else run it, or maybe you just want to close it down. But thinking about that exit strategy will also help you set yourself up to get there. The end goal matters.
Yes, because you build things a little bit differently and handle all those things. And that's the unique thing about entrepreneurship is that you are holding so many things, which is why I think, women can be pretty amazing at it because we're good at holding a lot of things. But you are holding so many different things at the same time when you're building a business.
Yeah. No, I think women are exceptional at this. We were made to do this because our brains, we think differently, we fire differently, we sell differently, we talk to people differently. Everything sets us up to be successful in this space. And just the one thing that we don't get taught is business acumen. And that's the piece that we often try to duct tape it and glue it together is how do I do all of the business side of the business things. And that's why, like, again, I always say I'm the person that teaches all that boring stuff because it's what will make you successful long term. But when you're ready to learn the boring bits, come see me. I will make it fun, I promise. So
You
yeah.
do make it fun. I love that's one thing about Your social media that I enjoy, and I found you on Instagram is where I specifically found you, is that you have this way of making concepts entertaining and connecting in a way. But I also love because you step away sometimes from social media too and don't let it completely overtake you. So you've managed to find success in doing marketing, doing stuff and connecting with your audience, but also not letting it overtake things. And I love it because I see you and get excited when I see you and connect with you. And then you're gone, but I'm still excited when I see you again. And they bring you back to me. So you don't totally disappear. So that I love that you have this authenticity and this balance as well with your presence, which I feel like a lot of online entrepreneurs feel like they are a slave to that connection. So, can you talk more about how you've managed to find success and that balance with finding your clients and audience with balancing that and being authentically you and still maintaining your family and your time for yourself as well?
Yeah, so I social media for me, Instagram specifically. I'm not going to say social media across. I'm going to talk right about the gram, as it is
Okay, right about the
I'm in
gram.
the middle of the bullseye here. So,
Yes.
for me, coming into the online space as like using Instagram for business was such a learning curve. I used X, Twitter, then now X, consistently in my career. I used Facebook consistently. I was featured by Facebook originally for using it so progressively in the
Oh,
nonprofit space. I
wow.
was one of the first people to ever actually pick it up in nonprofit. And then, so I was like, I'm good at this. I know this stuff. Instagram, whatever. Right. And I got
Yeah.
on, and I still remember the very first time I ever did a live. And all of a sudden, all of these things were happening on the screen, and there were eyeballs and hearts and emojis and everything. And I was like, what am I doing here? It just overwhelmed me. So I spent a lot of time trying to get really good at it. And then I also realized that this doesn't have to be the only way that I can sell. There are other ways that I sell. There's other ways that I can connect with my audience that feel more natural to me. So I use Instagram not as a growth tool, I use it as a nurture tool. So I'm like, the people who are there are the ones I love on. That's my audience. And I don't worry about my numbers very much. And I spend more time focusing my efforts in other places where I'm able to connect with people in a more like authentic, real way that I feel that I can through that screen all the time. So it's been, my email list is really important to me. My podcast is the most important thing and to me in all of my marketing assets. And then also the way that I tend to do a lot of live trainings, because for me, it replicates that feeling of fundraising where I'm able to work a room and get to know people and be me. So you see who I really am, and I can do a much better job helping you there than I can in an 8-second reel. So I treat it kind of for what it is, but it's taken time to get there. I'll say that. It was not an overnight thing. There's been many a moment where I've sworn at that app. So I'll tell you. Uh,
Yes. Yeah, that's I think the challenge with Instagram specifically, since we're talking about it, is that it's like it will connect you to people you don't know. Like you and I never would have found each other honestly without Instagram. So like it does have this ability to connect you to unknown audiences, right? And to me, it feels like that's the one thing that Instagram provides. But at the same time, it's just so finicky and so difficult, and it's hard for it to feel authentic. And you and I are both people that really like to be authentically us. And so to find that way to make it a way to really actually connect with people and actually get to that next level instead of it just being a surfacey thing that can feel like at times is the challenge. And so to make sure that we're letting it be a tool for us and not something that's actually stressing us and draining us. But I do love that you've managed to really find that with Facebook and that when you were doing your stuff with fundraising, that it was such a tool that you were able to utilize.
Yeah, we did a lot of things differently with Facebook when Facebook first came out, and we are starting to. And like I said, I'm dating myself by saying this because this is back in the day now at
Uh-huh.
this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so we Facebook first started coming out with their fan pages. That was when I started experimenting, using it in my own nonprofit of being able to match. I used to work with athletes who were visually impaired, so we would find guides for them, and we used it as this matching tool that we would use and really get the word out there. And it was completely different and unique than the way people were using business pages at that time, because again, I was using it as a social platform. Like, let's, instead of it being like a one-way conversation, let's bring this together and use this tool for something that can be collaborative and exciting and different. And that is the point of social. And I still to this day think that one of the reasons why we have so much friction with it is because it's become such a one-way conversation when
Yeah.
it never was meant to do that. It was meant to be like, hey, friends, like, let's talk about things we both like and we like to vibe off of. We'll just like unpack that together.
Yes, and that's somebody on a in a business group that I was on recently was saying about how frustrated they were with social media and those pieces. And what I said to them is it's because we get this impression sometimes from our online gurus, I feel like, that we're told that like you're just supposed to go viral online and like that will make your business be everything it's supposed to be. And yet really you're just shouting on a street corner. And just because you have a bigger crowd that you're shouting at doesn't mean that it makes any difference. You're just shouting at a bigger crowd. It doesn't actually mean that you're authentically building relationships and attracting the right people and making an impact in your business. And so the metrics of how many people you shouted out doesn't necessarily mean any difference. Like the people that you actually smile at when you walk down the street and you shake hands with and have a conversation and connect with is actually a better metric. So if I walk down the street and I smile at 5 people and they smile back, like that makes my day better and their day better. And that's more connecting than if I shouted at 200 people from the corner. so, so trying to find the ways to actually make those authentic connections through social media and being creative about how we can do that is like that next level, and figuring that out is it's a challenge because we're also taught to entertain and like and do this, and that's I'm gonna whisper this because people might be people might hear these on these platforms, but that the platforms are using us to entertain and get people to stay on their platforms. They're not a tool for us to connect. So we need to find ways for that to be our way to connect to our audiences instead of us just, dancing on the corner and get a bigger audience to watch us dance on the corner. That we actually, it's not just for shouting on the corners, and trying to find that way to be authentic with those platforms isn't always easy. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why podcasting, obviously, you and I see the power of it. And the individuals listening to us also can understand the power of podcasting because they're here with us. And to see that that's actually ways to really get to know people and share knowledge and growth and humor and laughter and connection to some extent, that's why a podcast network is called Authentic Connections, because I feel like it does add to that piece of getting to know people. And list building is something that you also are really good at and have had some success with.
Yeah. Yeah. Fully agree with you. Everything you just said on about podcasting 100%. So, and I've always said with podcasting that to me, it's the thing that feels most like my career was the podcasting world, because people who podcast are just like philanthropists. They're open and giving and just here to change and willing, and like there's no competition. It's a totally different world. I love it. I
Mhm.
love it, love it, love it. So I was like, I'll spend all my time here instead of on the other tools. So
Yes.
I get it. Yeah. But list building for me is a really important thing as well. And I think, again, list building has become a very common thing that's talked about in the online space. But most people, I feel, don't understand why it's important to build a list. They're just told build a list, and not that back end of understanding what that list really is, which are your leads. They're qualified
Mhm.
leads. Those are the people that are the most interested in hearing from you, the ones who've put their hands up and said, I actually want to have sales messages sent to me. I want to be marketed to. Please tell me more ways to work with you. And we miss that connection a lot of the time. And we think
Yeah.
that our Instagram followers are leads, and they are not leads. They're just people staring at you through a window. So spending more time on that list is really where it's going to be better for you in the long term. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And that's an important thing to pay attention to and to understand that component as well. And you have an exciting opportunity. So for those of you that are like listening to this podcast in live time when it first comes out around this, you actually have an exciting boot camp that you're going to be doing to actually support solopreneurs and entrepreneurs. Can you tell us more about this boot camp you have coming up?
I can. I'm very excited. So it's called Online Marketing Kickstarter, and it's a free 15-day boot camp with me. We're not together for every single day for 15 days. It's just happening over those 3 weeks. And I'm helping women be able to understand how to get those things in place to have those consistent 10K months, looking from your offer all the way down to the way that you're generating leads, how you're selling, how you're pricing, understanding your marketing, and how to do all of this with very ethical, aligned tactics and strategies, so that you're not going to, again, feel like you're just out there peddling or being,
Mhm.
bro marketing thing that we see so much. Instead, being able to do it in a way that's authentic and lasting, so that you can really make an impact with your talent, but also be able to make consistent revenue coming in as well, so you can support yourself and your family from there. So it starts on October 8th. I'm looking forward to it. I run boot camps quite often, and this is the first time I've ever taught this one, and I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and everything is free. like
Free,
super
free,
high
free.
value, super free, 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 free.
Oh, and that's why I'm so excited to like get you on here and share this with everyone because 15 days is nice because sometimes these things happen like in a blink and they're so overwhelming and they're happening so fast that you just can't even get the things done. So spreading it out is nice because it's time to digest and actually utilize what you're sharing with folks.
Yeah, and implement. I think that's the thing as well that I find a lot of the time I've gone to free trainings where I'm like, there's nothing of substance coming to me here. It's a lot of very high level or like, fluffy type of materials, more marketing than is actually education. And I educate on the other side. I'm like, we're going to dig down, you're going to learn it, but now I'm going to give you space to apply it and then post it. I'm going to review it. I'm going to help you finesse it. Then we will move on to the next thing. So at the end of it, you're going to walk out with a little business plan in place and something that you've taken the time to put together and it's actually had eyes on it to help to make sure it's going to be work for you the best way because we don't need more overwhelm. I mean, women already, we do too much, right? We just tell me what I need to do to make it work and I'll do it. That's it. And that's what
Yes.
I do. I'm like, don't do all that stuff, just do this, it'll work.
Oh, that is amazing. That is incredible. And I am so excited that you're offering this. I think it makes such a big difference. And I think for especially women solopreneurs, like getting started, something like this is just a gift to kind of get you focused and ready to go in that direction to get those things done. So I'm so excited that you're doing this piece and you're actually addressing like offers. You're addressing like the important things that people need to like get money into the business and get things flowing to get them up to the point they need to be at.
Yeah, we're talking about it all. So we're talking about offers, we're talking about tech, because tech, I think, is something also that overwhelms us so much. And we're
Yes.
told to buy everything, right? Everybody has an
Yes.
affiliate link. So buy all my affiliates things. And we don't need it. And also, I find most of the time when I'm doing audits with women in their business, the number one thing that's keeping them down is their expenses. That their expenses are so high because they have all of these subscriptions to things that we do not need. So we're going to strip that down and just give you here's the basics of what you need based on your business. Use these and go. And so we're talking tech, we're talking pricing, we're talking
Yeah.
marketing, we're talking list building, we're talking sales. I'm doing a whole training on sales, ethical sales systems. So it's a package, it's everything. So we're going through all of the stuff, all the things. Yeah.
I was just talking to one of my fellow entrepreneurs just I think last week that was saying like that's what you need is just to tell us what we don't need because that's the frustrating thing is that trying to figure out I get one piece of tech and then I go so far I'm like, "Oh no, now it's this subscription doesn't give me these other 3 things I need. So now I need to do these 3 things to get this one thing, but now I got this far and now I can't complete my offer because I need these other 2 things." And so to actually have like the complete like from A to Z, do you have the offer? Like, this is how I actually deliver it to my customer in the online space. I always feel like there's like 2 things I'm missing to actually get it there. Like, I have my email service provider, I have a landing page, and then I have to connect the 3 things, and then I actually have to deliver it. And how do I actually get them this piece of it? And like, there's always something missing. And then I spend 5 days researching how to find the one thing and get further behind. So this is so brilliant. This is so helpful. Jan, thank you.
My pleasure. I like I said, I love systems. I love processes. I love all these things. So, and again, like because of the way that most of us work, this is either some of us are doing this full time, some of us are doing this in conjunction with a full time career, some of us are doing this
Yes.
running houses and children and all of
Yes.
the other things as well. We don't have time to muck about. So, like there are systems all the time, and in fundraising, that's all we ran were systems. We just would go in and run a system after one after another, adapt it to where we were, but it's the same system. And that's what I
Yes.
still continue to teach is just like, here are systems, here are plug and plays, here are blueprints.
Mhm.
We're going to
Mhm.
modify it and tailor it to you, but go do this because it will actually result in money, but you'll see it coming in at the back end.
That's brilliant. And I have one really important question. Even though I'm not Canadian, can I say muck about? Because I love it.
You can say muck about. I will give you that.
I got it. I get to say muck
Yeah.
about. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Well, good. Because and we're going to talk more. So for those of you that have the Apple Podcast subscribers that are going to get up close, we're going to talk to Jan a little bit more about this mindset from going from employee to entrepreneur. So those of you that are in that trajectory or have gone through that, we're going to talk a little bit more about that mindset and also about if you're under 50K, what we should focus on. So we're going to spend a little more time on that, but we're going to get into our classic thing of exploring authenticity that we do every week. So, who is someone in your life that you feel lives really authentically, Jan?
Oh, that's a great question. Can it be a person I know personally, or do you want it to be somebody, the name of somebody that's everybody will know their name?
Oh, I love it when it's a person you know personally, but we can also do a name that everybody knows. So whichever one comes to mind first.
So I'm going to say my friend Emily, and that's the first person I think of. And Emily, I recently met her. I've known her only for about a year now. And the reason why we connected so well right off the bat was because she is the most real human being I've ever met. And
Oh,
she owns who she is. She is proud of who she is. She doesn't feel she needs to put on airs, and she has a heart of gold. And so I think when you're around people who are authentic, it helps you understand where you fit in, because again, we came out of this world where we were all face to face all the time, and then we all got put into lockdowns and all of the things, and then many of us started online businesses because of it. And so we lost that human connection that happened because the screens kind of block it.
yeah.
So it became really, I don't know maybe about you, but with me, I sometimes felt awkward when I was in a room again, and I came from working rooms, but I'd get into a room and I'd be like, I don't know how to act around people anymore. And so when you deal with somebody who's just like, hey, it's me, it drops walls and you can just be yourself and lean in and relax. And that's Emily's like that. I just think she's the world of her. She's a lovely person.
Oh, I love that. I love that description because I love that we get to hear that and feel like what we want to be doing to be more authentic and be more of ourselves. So when you show up and you just are willing to just be who you are, that does drop walls and that does like help make it easier to connect with others. I love that.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Yes.
Emily's gonna love that. She's gonna hear this and she's like, "Oh, that's me she's talking about."
I'll see her at school pickup. I'll tell her. So,
I love it. That's
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So, for sharing some of your expertise, what advice do you have for listeners who are trying to amplify their message to better connect with their clients?
I think a lot of it comes down to really understanding what you want to be known for. And that's the
Ooh.
question that all of my women I work with go through that, and we spend time on that. What do you want to be known for? And I don't mean I want to be known for the person who teaches people how to have 10K months, or I want to be known for this. I mean, what's your impact going to be? Where is it when the end of this, no matter how long your business run is, what do you want people to remember about you? And that becomes your driving mission in your business. And you can package that. That can be packaged into all kinds of things we can sell. But understanding that at our core, that's what keeps us grounded and centered and tethered. I think that's our North Star. When we talk about North Stars in business,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
what is it you really are trying to do in the world with the gift that you were given?
That's beautiful. I love that. I absolutely love that. And that's actually so as we get to our like real world application, we want people to walk away from this conversation. I almost feel like that's it of trying to figure out what is that North Star for you, because that's going to make the biggest difference. And there are hard days when you run your own solopreneur can feel very lonely. So what is like to know like what that mission is probably really important.
Yeah, I think it is. And it comes down to, when you think about, I believe strongly that we all have natural gifts and we were put here to be able to use that gift in a way to help the world become a better place. But finding out what is the thing in you that you can really double down on and that will keep you driving for the money, but also on those hard days, like you said, will keep you going forward. That's
Yeah.
where your sweet spot's going to be. Like that's the revenue. I call it like, what's your profit offer? Your profit offer is a combination of your skills and your passions brought together. And so we need to identify what is that passion, right? What's the thing inside of us that's really keeps us like humming. And then we can stick it into a course, we can stick it into any kind of offer, but we need to know that first.
Oh, that's beautiful. And if you need help with that, there is this boot camp I've heard of.
There is. It's a great, and we're doing that in training one. So it's
Training
there.
one. It's
Training
right
one.
there, October
Yeah.
8th. Yes, we will
October 8th.
definitely have that in the show notes. And you also have a freebie for us too, a checklist, right?
Yes, yeah. I have this great checklist and it's called your 100K online business checklist. And it goes
Ooh.
through all of the different buckets of the things that you need to have set up in your business if you want to get to a six-figure and beyond business. I'll be honest, some of them are pretty boring. They're there. But the nice part about it is it also reduces that overwhelm, because when you print it off and you go through, there's a lot there. It's not like here's like just 5 things you need to know. There's pages of things, but it gives you something that every week you can say, I'm going to take this one thing, put this on my calendar, and I'm going to master this, check it off. Next week, I'm going to now do this, check it off. And by the end of a year, you've set yourself up with the foundations to be able to thrive. And it's just one little check at a time, one little tactic, one little system, one little process, and they're all laid out for you just to follow it as you feel. And no, it doesn't matter the order, just do them at some point.
Do them. Just do them.
Yeah,
Awesome.
do them.
Awesome.
Yes.
And we'll have that. So that's at your website. So tell us your website.
Yeah. So you can find me at janditchfield.co. I'm a .co, and you can get both the boot camp there. So it's janditchfield.co/bootcamp, or the checklist is /checklist. Very easy URLs to remember.
Very smart. Very smart. We like that. And so we'll have both those in the show notes as well. If that's easy for you, just go to the show notes and click on them as well. So you can do that right now. Go and just push the button and get yourself signed up and set up for those. Timing wise, if you're doing this live, like the boot camp will be a great option for you. And the checklist will get you connected regardless. And what's the other best way to connect with you?
Instagram and my podcast would probably be the other two. So No BS Business School, you can always get me there. And I'm on all the major players, and I release every Thursday. And then on Instagram, I'm at janditchfield.co there as well. So basically, if you just type in janditchfield.co, I will pop up somewhere.
Somewhere
in the ether. Yes.
I love it. That's a great way to do it. Perfect.
Yeah.
So 80% of small businesses may be solopreneurs, but that does not mean you have to be doing this alone. So we're here every single week, and I hope you will be too. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jan. This has been so amazing.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.